With the All-Star game quickly approaching, I think it's time we look at some players that you forgot were All-Stars for the Seattle Mariners. Now, the All-Star game is different than you would think. Of course, it's not just who the best players are, because every team has to have a representative. So there were some years where the Mariners were bad, that they had a representative nonetheless. Now, was this video just an excuse for me to wear my All-Star game Daniel Vogelbach jersey? Maybe. And the Mariners have some really memorable All-Star game moments. Let's talk about some guys you forgot about. And first, of course, let's talk about Daniel Vogelbach. Vogelbach kind of became a cult hero for the Seattle Mariners. Who could forget his home run over the Hit It Here Cafe? And once he was finally an All-Star, you better believe my biased ass was very excited. Vogelbach was an All-Star in 2019. Through the year, he hit 208, 241, 439 with a 111 OPS plus. He hit 30 home runs that year. And this was really buoyed by a strong first half for Vogie, where he hit 238 in the first half of 2019 with 21 of his 30 home runs. In the second half of 2019, he hit 162 with just 9 home runs. And honestly, they were the perfect All-Star game jerseys for Daniel Vogelbach. The sleeveless jerseys with those friggin' arms. Yeah, that man is a tank. Next, let's talk about a relief pitcher for the Mariners. Because yeah, Brandon League was an All-Star at one point for the Mariners. It's true. I forgot about it. You probably did too. And honestly, looking at his career numbers, he was a lot better than I remember. In 2011, when he became an All-Star, he had a 2.79 ERA with a 136 ERA plus. He saved 37 games. League came into the All-Star game, pitched 1 inning, faced 5 batters, gave up 2 hits. He gave up a run as well with only 1 strikeout. Brandon League came out of the All-Star game with a 9 ERA in that game, which is honestly par for the course for Brandon League. He does live on in the hearts of Mariners fans though, as he was of course part of that combined no-hitter that was started by Kevin Millwood all those years ago. Brandon League, such an interesting character, and someone who I honestly forgot was an All-Star. In 2021, the Mariners had Yusei Kikuchi going to Coors Field in the All-Star game. Obviously, Coors Field, not a great place for pitchers to go for the All-Star game, but Kikuchi was one of the big signings for the Mariners a few years prior, and he was finally going to an All-Star game, and honestly, he performed really well in the first half of 2021. Overall, Kikuchi had a 7-9 record with a 4.41 ERA in 29 games started. He had 163 strikeouts, but an ERA plus of 93. With a 1.318 whip, it's just obvious why Yusei Kikuchi wasn't very good. But in the first half of 2021, in 98 innings pitched, he had a 3.48 ERA, having just a 2.04 batting average against and giving up a 2.76 OBP. It finally looked like Yusei Kikuchi had figured it out and was going to be the guy that everyone expected him to be on this Mariners roster. Unfortunately, Yusei Kikuchi was pulled from the All-Star game roster because he had COVID. He was still an All-Star though, he just never made an appearance in the All-Star game. So Yusei, hopefully you get back there soon, buddy. And then there was everybody's favorite Rookie of the Year candidate, Michael Pineda, also in 2011, the same year that Brandon League went. Pineda, of course, was traded for Jesus Montero after that season, and honestly, one of the worst trades in Mariners history, in my opinion. Of course, Pineda has had his own struggles, but at least he's still in the league, whereas Jesus Montero isn't. In 2011, Pineda went 9-10 with a 3.74 ERA and 171 innings pitched. He had an ERA plus of 101. And really, it was his first half that made Michael Pineda so good for the Mariners. In 113 innings pitched in the first half, he had a 3.03 ERA with 113 strikeouts and a 198 batting average against. However, in the second half, in just 58 innings pitched, he had a 5.12 ERA with 60 strikeouts and a 236 batting average against. He was part of a starting rotation that featured Jason Vargas and Felix Hernandez when they were all really good, and trading Michael Pineda for Jesus Montero at the time made sense. The idea was that you'd be getting a really good hitting catcher. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out. As we all know, there were countless times with Jesus Montero that we thought finally he's here, and then he wasn't. And in his All-Star game appearance, Pineda threw 10 pitches, 8 of which were strikes. He got a flyout and 2 strikeouts over a scoreless inning in the bottom of the third. Pineda in his rookie year shined really bright, and he's shown flashes of that throughout the rest of his career, but honestly, not much has come from it. Now, there have been other interesting All-Star choices for the Mariners. I think none other than Jean Segura, who was voted in by the fans in a huge push by Mariners fans towards the end of the voting, where Segura beat out Andrew Benintendi, Giancarlo Stanton, Eddie Rosario, etc. to make it onto the All-Star team. And that was one of the greatest moments in All-Star game history for the Mariners. We have that video on the screen right now talking about the best All-Star game moments for the Mariners. Check that one out now. Appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.